Well, cheers. Welcome to What You Sipping On. We are here at the Public Square in Gallatin, Tennessee. We are here with the CEO, Kim Baker of Gallatin Chamber. We got our buddy William Stiles here, Country Financial, Eric Thornton, eXp Realty, myself, Dennis Stopa with Studio Bank, and behind the scenes, the brains of the podcast, Brian Holloway with Black Fox Media. So, Kim, to start us off, what are we sipping on here?
Today, we're having a clean and skinny agave margarita. It's just a little bit of agave, lime juice, and tequila. I hope that's all that's in it, Eric.
Confirmed.
That's what he told me.
confirmed.
He made them himself.
That's all that's in there.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Today's
Perfect.
It's Margarita Monday. I don't know.
I like it.
Yeah,
So is this,
perfect.
what is the margarita drink? Why is this your fave?
Well, I've always liked margaritas. I don't know. I started out as a bourbon person, right? In college, I went to the University of Tennessee initially, so fell into that Tennessee whiskey there. Then over the years, I learned that whiskey didn't like me as much, although I like it a lot. And then I started drinking clean margaritas, and they're tasty and not full of a lot of bad stuff. So
I got to say, though, when we were trying to, Kim and I were organizing her appearance today, she did give us a choice. If we were coffee or a vodka soda, or she's got a lot of, evidently there's a story behind this, why you let people surprise you.
yeah.
Tell us the story behind that.
Yeah, I told you to surprise me. So when I think I was 15 or 16, and I was out to dinner. It was my birthday. Group of friends were there. My high school boyfriend, his name was Ben, he was there with us, and the server came by to get the order, and he gave him 3 things. And the server said, "Well, you're getting all 3." He goes, "No, I just want one of them, and I want you to surprise me." And so throughout our relationship, he would do that every time we went out to dinner. He would tell the server to surprise him. And it's really fun because how many times have you been to a restaurant and you're not really sure what to get and you hate to make that decision, right? And so I've carried that on for several years. And it's just kind of fun because it's an element of surprise. You know what you want, but you're okay with any of those things. So I don't think we get enough surprises in life.
Well, you asked this group difference or a choice between coffee and margs. We're going margs all day,
We're
so I don't know
margaritas
how
on
much of a
that.
surprise it
I'm
was.
here for it. I'm okay with it.
So, Kim, you've been CEO of Gallatin Chamber for 9 years, right?
I'm in my 6 years CEO. I've been at the chambers for 9 years, though.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So, talk to us about what brought you to, you graduated from UT in Tennessee, right?
I did not. I failed out of UT, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All
it's a
right.
good story.
Yeah, that's it. So, talk to us about that.
So when
I
I
always
graduated,
love a good failure story.
I mean,
And
it
we've
is,
all
right?
failed a
Story of your
lot,
life,
so-
right?
I feel like we
Story of many of
should
us.
talk about those stories more.
Oh, acknowledge your failures.
Yeah,
for
there's something to be
sure.
learned
Yeah.
from it.
So I graduated from Gallatin High School. Before I went to Gallatin, I went to College Heights, which was a small, very Southern Baptist school here in Gallatin. Then I went to JP2, the Catholic high school, now known as Pope Prep, when it opened. And then I went to Gallatin High School my senior year. I always like to say I was well-rounded before I got to college. I'd seen a little bit of everything. But I did. It really prepared me well. I had a good, diverse friend group. Got to UT, got into the architecture program. I actually applied to every architecture school in the Southeast. My dad was a civil engineer, and I was an artist throughout high school. And my dad said, "Hey, you really need to go into one of these 3 fields. You need to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, or else you're going to be poor and you're not going to be happy." And I was like, okay, well, I was young and impressionable and listened to my parents. So I did. I spent most of my junior and senior year applying to every architecture school, got into every architecture school in the Southeast, and didn't do any career exploration before I got there. I didn't interview an architect. I didn't job shadow, didn't intern. I didn't even really do a Google search on what an architect was or did. I just knew that my dad was a civil engineer. He worked closely with architects, and he said that I would be good at it, and my portfolio indicated that I was equipped to do it. So I got there, and I was the only female in my architecture studio. It's still a predominantly male field, and at that time, which this would have been in 2005, it was certainly as well. And in the first year students at architecture at UT is a 5-year program. First year students are integrated with interior design students. So there were females in my studio class, but they were in interior design. And so I would go in there and I'd work on my models and work on my drawings. I mean, there was long nights where we'd sleep in the building. We had like a cot and a We had a TV, we had a fridge, we had a microwave, we had everything in there. And that was pretty common. And it still is today for architecture students. You just stay in there and work until you're done. But this professor did not like me. He was old school architect, did not think women should be in the field. And he did not like my creative edge or anything I did. I mean, I wasn't doing bad. I was producing what I was supposed to, but he just didn't like me. So there would be days where he would dismiss the interior design students. And I would be in my seat because I was an architecture student. And he'd say, Mrs. Myers, I've dismissed the interior design students. And I'd say, yes, professor, but I'm an architecture student. And he would say, oh, yes, I remember. So it was really defeating, to be young and trying your best, but really not in a field that you really wanted to be in. I just was told I should be in. I was good at it, but I got in and I quickly realized that I did not like it. It really wanted me to conform my creativity, and it wasn't my ideas I was getting to push out on paper, which that's the world of architecture.
I'm interested. How did that? I just can't believe you. How did that make you become a better person hearing that every day, or how did that mold you as a person hearing him defeat you like that?
Well, at the time, it made me withdraw because I was young and there was a lot more fun to be had on UT's campus than what was happening in that architecture building. And believe me, I found it. I found every kind of fun you could. I joined a sorority. I was involved in all the different clubs and then all the different extracurricular activities that were outside of academic things. But, for me, I think the way that's kind of translated in my life is really giving people a chance. And it's made me push the limits. I look back and I'm like, man, Kim, you should have just pushed it out to show him that you could have done it, because that's very much the type of person I am today. You tell me I can't do something, I'm going to try even harder to do it, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it really well. And so I guess that's kind of instilled that in me. So ultimately I failed out of UT. So I did not graduate from UT.
So after that, you just...
I stayed in Knoxville for a year because I
Gotcha.
had signed a lease. I had signed a lease on an apartment there with two of my best friends. And so I wasn't going to bail on them. But my parents told me, they were like, we're not going to pay for it because you're not in college anymore there. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to get a job. And so I came home that summer back to Sumner County. I opened the O'Charlie's in Hendersonville that's not there anymore. And that's when I dove kind of headfirst into the service industry and fell in love with that world for quite some time. It was about a decade. I waited tables and bartended, and I loved it. And if you've ever done that, then it's hard to get out of that because the money was so good and it was fun and the lifestyle and all of the things. But I ultimately went back to UT. I stayed, or back to Knoxville. I stayed with O'Charlie's. I reopened all of their Knoxville region stores because at the time, O'Charlie's was going through a rebrand called the Revolution. And so they were revolutionizing all the stores. So this one was new and was like the model in the company, the one in Hendersonville that's not there anymore. And then the ones in Knoxville had to be reopened. So I had this totally opposite life and schedule than my roommates. They were all in class all day, and then they would do stuff at night. And then I was sleeping or, doing whatever during the day and working at night. So we hardly ever saw each other. So it wasn't really a sustainable living situation for us because I thought that I could stay there and I would get back into UT and it would be normal again, but we drifted all apart because my world was totally different. They weren't working, I was. So, yeah. So then I ultimately came back to Gallatin, and I attended the community college in Knoxville. I was there. And then when I came back, I enrolled at Vol State and finished up all of the general ed requirements that I needed while I kind of figured out what I wanted to do.
That's awesome. So are you still a fan of O'Charlie's? Does that have a soft spot in your heart or no?
No.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. They are. O'Charlie's is an active member of our chamber. They're a great company and a great place to dine. But it's one of, I spent about 10 years there and ate a lot of their food. And so it's not at the top of my list of
done.
Yeah, it's not
burned out of
yep,
O'Charlie's.
Yep. Burned out. That's exactly right.
As a former server, I will say that serving teaches you a lot.
It does.
Especially how to deal with people. I feel like when you approach a table, you never know who you're approaching.
Oh,
and you realize really quick whether you're going to chat with them and they're their best friend or you're just taking their order and that's it. But I think when you get into the business world, that relates to the business too. And I'm sure you at the chamber now, it's the same thing. You deal with so many different people and companies that 10 years of bartending or serving has probably helped you.
Absolutely. And that's the funny thing about it. When I bartended, I mean, I had 40 to 50 businessmen that would rap my bar every day. And quite honestly, they're how I paid my way through the rest of college. I went on to finish at Vol State, went on to MTSU, and I studied communications. And that waiting tables and working in the restaurant industry is what made me realize that I loved the communications world, because having those conversations and really getting to walk into a situation blindly all the time and figuring out how it was going to go and learning how to navigate it was really fun to me. And so I really loved that.
That's great. As a communication minor, so did you have a concentration in communication, or?
So my degree's in organizational communication, and then I had a
Okay.
concentration on leadership.
Okay, gotcha. So you were at O'Charlie's, you're at UT. Now bring us around full circle. How'd you get involved in the chamber? I mean, it seems like, not a stretch. You related to businesses, but coming back to Gallatin and then getting into the Chamber of Commerce. How did that all circle around?
So when I came back, I was kind of embarrassed to be back, right? Because at that point, when you left Gallatin, and I think most of us feel this way about our hometown, when you left, you didn't want to come back. It's changed a lot now. I work with a lot of teenagers, and a lot of them are excited to stay here because now there's opportunities and there's things to do. I know I've got a 15-year-old. He likes to come to Philly's and hang out on the square on the weekends, which is awesome because that was not something we were doing when we were teenagers. But so those first year or two, I was really embarrassed to be back here. I was like, oh, people are going to see me. They're going to know I failed out of college. They're going to know I'm back. So I, in addition to waiting tables and bartending, I was also nannying. I started working as a nanny. And so I nannied for a couple prominent families in Hendersonville. I did that during the day, and then I would bartend at night, and then I would navigate my school kind of in between picking up the kids or online classes or different things like that. And so for a while, before I was in the communications world, I really thought I wanted to do education, early childhood education or elementary education, until I got a job with a fun company, the YMCA's after school program, and I had 23 kindergartners. I was like, oh, this is like awful. This is like a version of hell.
No,
for me, it was.
Yeah.
Lesson learned.
No,
Yeah, because I was
no.
working as a nanny, and I thought, I love kids. And then I got 23 kindergartners alone, and I was like, this isn't for me.
No,
No.
that's-
You love
Yeah.
one or two kids.
Yeah, one or two that like I have complete control over.
I love
23.
my 3 kids.
Right. And that was one of the
23
things too. I
nope.
thought, I don't think I could ever have my own children if I'm watching 23 of someone else's every day. So fast forward, I've graduated from MTSU. I graduated in 2012, so it took me 8 years to finish college. I took the long, hard path, no special extra degrees or anything. But if you remember 2012, it was not the best time for a young, inexperienced person to find a job. I mean, it was like the worst time to find a job because nobody was hiring people that were right out of college because there was a ton of people that had a lot of experience that were willing to take whatever job. So I probably applied for about 60 to 80 jobs that summer. I applied. I would go to, we didn't have internet at the house because we couldn't afford it. So I'd go take Hayden. He was like, I don't know, 5, 6 at the time. I'd go to Chick-fil-A. He'd play in the play place. I would take my laptop and just power off my resume to every job out there. And nobody would even email me back. I remember I got one interview. That was it. And all I could think was, if these people would just interview me, I think they'd really like me, because all they were seeing on paper was that I'd been a bartender and a nanny, and I'd taken a long time to finish college. So a good friend of mine, Brad Singleton, he owns Briar Scratch Brewing. He owns, he's co-owner of Philly's, Prince Street, the whole pizza and pub concept. He started that. At that time, none of those restaurants existed yet, but Briar Scratch was in the beginning stages of starting. And so, except breweries were not allowed in the county. So he was working with the county commission to change local legislation to allow breweries in the county. He had gotten to know Paige Brown, who's now our mayor. He had gotten to know her then as her role as a county commissioner, but also she was in my position at the chamber. So this would have been 2013, and I'm still working at this time. I'm working full time as a nanny. It was a really good gig. Worked for a pediatrician in Hendersonville, and I loved it. And I'd kind of given up on the quest to find like a career or a job in my field because I was so discouraged. Well, I hosted a Halloween party at my house that year, and ironically, I was dressed as Mary Poppins, a nanny. And we're all sitting around the fire, and the joke with all of my friends, because they had finished college on time in like 4 to 5 years. So at this point, they're into their careers now. So the joke with them was, Kim, are you going to be a nanny forever? And I thought, well, I don't want to. And Brad said, well, I found out about this job. I don't know what they do, but I think you'd be really good at it. And I was like, okay, what is it? And he's like, it's the chamber. Again, I don't know what a chamber does. And I was like, I don't know what a chamber does either. He said, the lady's name is Paige Brown. She runs it. Here's her contact. I'll tell her you're going to call. So that was a Saturday. I called her on a Sunday. I went in for an interview on a Monday. And we interviewed. And at the time, it was a part-time, like, office administration job, like answering the phones, checking emails, greeting people when they come in, stuffing envelopes. And it did not pay near as well as my nanny job. And I was like, but this sounds like there's potential. And then in the interview, she goes on to tell me that she's going to be running for mayor. She said, I'm going to be running for mayor next year. She said, I have no idea what that means. I don't know if I'm going to get elected. I don't know if if I get elected, I don't know what'll happen here. If I don't get elected, I don't know what'll happen here. She said, I might leave, I might stay. She said, the board will ultimately decide what happens if I leave. And I said, would I be eligible for your job? And got nothing to lose at this point.
Right, yeah.
She said, well, by then you'll have a year of experience here and you have a degree, so I don't see why you couldn't apply for it. And I was like, okay, great, I'll take the job. So I took the job. I didn't take the job with the intention of having hers. I just needed to know that there was potential that I wouldn't be like at a desk. Just remember, I'm used to a fast-paced job, chasing kids, dealing with drunks, all kinds of things. And I'm like, I don't know if I can sit at a desk all day. So it quickly evolved. I became the first third full-time employee the chamber had ever had, because I sat up there and I answered phones and then there'd be like downtime. So I started reorganizing spreadsheets and doing this and took over the social media. They laughed at me at first because they thought the way I did social media was funny because they were like quirky or used hashtags. And I was like, I promise you, this is what we're supposed to be doing. And I'm proud to say that our chamber still today has more followers on Facebook than any other chamber in the state. And I think it's because we got on board early doing some of those things. So fast forward, Paige gets elected in 2014, takes office in 2015. The board decides to do a nationwide search. And about 80 people applied. I was the only internal candidate. I made sure that Zena, who's my COO, Zena and Debbie have been there since before me. And it was really important to me that whatever happened, that we retained our staff, that we stayed together. And so I asked Zena, I said, do you want to apply for this? She was like, absolutely not. I don't want to do that. And I was like, okay, great. Well, I'm going to apply for it. And, if I apply and I were to get the job, would you stay? And she was like, yes. I was like, okay, I'm going to apply then. So I applied, and really they drug me through the interview process, and it was pretty intense. And I thought for sure that they were just interviewing me just to be kind, because I was the only internal candidate. But they hired me. I think it was February 9th, 2015. I became the youngest chamber CEO in the state. And
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's
pretty
incredible.
cool. And the rest is kind of.
That's
then.
interesting that you said you didn't know a lot about the chamber working for O'Charlie's. So working for them, you didn't have a lot of experience marketing with the chamber and other.
No, not because the way a lot of the times those corporately owned restaurants, or what you would call a chain restaurant, they have a local marketing rep that sometimes works for the whole district, or they maybe central office handles some of that. And so I was in charge of like opening teams. So mine was strictly like making sure the new employees got trained
Gotcha.
and
Okay.
onboarded. So
Gotcha.
I didn't really do a lot of that. Our O'Charlie's here in Gallatin is pretty active with our chamber and has been. So that's pretty fun.
Well, I got to pause there, most importantly, because you haven't touched your drink.
I know.
And
I was thinking about that. I
I've
was
got
like,
to give you a
I really need some of my drink.
timeout. you got to enjoy some of that margarita. But no, those are awesome nuggets. And I'll say, I know we're excited to have you on today, Kim, because what we're trying to do with our B3 group is to grow community, right? So we get to, by virtue of having this podcast, we get to introduce great business leaders like yourself to our community and beyond. And so that is obviously a forte of yours as well. I mean, you are building our community. You're helping businesses build their presence in the community. So what are some things that you guys focus on at the chamber that's helped you get the most followers of any chamber around and to help grow our community?
So that's a good question, because I always like to say if you've seen one chamber, then you've seen one chamber, because you would think that industry-wide that we would all be very similar, but we're not. And just like anybody in your business or your industry is not the same. It's all about how you do it and your secret sauce. And I think our secret sauce at the Gallatin Chamber, one of them is authenticity. We're very come as you are. And I like to say that chamber work is a lot like the church work or church model. Like, you really need to meet people where they are. And we've seen that trend in recent years in ministry and churches where, hey, we don't care if you put on a suit and tie for church this weekend. We want you to show up. Like if it's okay if you're in your jeans and that's kind of how we are with our businesses. Like we want to meet you where we are. So we have over 200 programs, 200 events programs that we offer throughout the year. And it sounds like a lot, but it's because we know that not all of our businesses have representatives that are available at lunch or after hours or in the morning. So we offer a little bit of everything to meet them where they are. The authenticity piece is really important to us because we want to be really real. And I think that's a lot to do with the culture of Gallatin too. I mean, when you meet people in Gallatin, what you see is what you get, right? They're not really putting on a show. That's who they are. When you see them on a Friday night at a football game or when you see them on Tuesday at a chamber event, it's usually the same person. And that's what we love about Gallatin. And that's where we try to present that. Another thing that we really try to do at the chamber is be consistent in our messaging, consistent in how we welcome people, and consistent in how we treat all of our members, right? So if I have a large investor or a large corporate partner, maybe like a big tech company that's coming to Gallatin, or I have this startup.
MySpace?
Huh?
MySpace?
Yeah,
MySpace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the guy's name on there?
They're still around.
Tom. I was going to say Dan. It's Tom.
No. Meta, we're really proud of Meta, and we're really proud to have them here and that they're calling Gallatin home and they're putting down roots here for a data center. And so, that they are our top member at the current time. But, how we treat them should be the same as how we treat the little guy who's starting out his business or doesn't know what he's doing yet, the startup or the small business. Yes, they bring different things to the table, but how we deliver services and what we offer them should be consistent across the board because they all bring value to our community. We see that a lot of chambers, don't experience as much success because they focus so heavy on the big businesses and they forget about the little guys or the nonprofits or those unique businesses that really give your community, and for us, specifically the Gallatin community, that unique flavor and fabric that and the texture that sets us apart from just some other city.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. As a chamber member. I mean, authenticity is. I mean, that's got to be at the top of my list of how I would describe the chamber. I think I probably said it to these guys, but the true grit, amazing grace.
Mm-hmm.
So it's rare that you see. I don't know. Businesses try slogans and branding and like all that kind of stuff a lot, but they don't always hit like every time, right? So I think you guys have done a great job of. If you could talk a little bit through how that was established.
Yeah.
And how that continues to guide you guys every day, because I think the community feels that. I think you guys just captured that perfectly.
And you're right. It's not common for a municipality, especially a city of our size. And when we went through that process, the city would have been closer to 40,000 than we are to 50,000 now. So that was in 2016. The city embarked on a strategic branding initiative, and that was a partnership with the city and led by the Gallatin Economic Development Agency. And then they brought in 4 individuals. One was a private business. One was kind of an outsider who was living here now, but had led some other larger communities through branding processes. He worked for NASA, so he had some experience doing things like that. I was involved, and then a large ServPro, somebody from ServPro, so a corporation that's headquartered here. We kind of served on that steering committee. And we partner with North Star, which is a company that's located here in the Nashville area, and they work specifically with communities and municipalities to help them develop their strategic brand identity. And you guys know, but for those that are listening that are watching, that's more than a logo. A lot of people think, especially when they saw the headline of that, the city spends X number of dollars for this, and they just thought, oh, they got a logo, and they spent a lot of money for it. But we got so much more. We got about 99 deliverables. We had the chamber came alongside the city and rebranded as well. So we committed early on, we would kind of mirror the city's brand because we felt like that was really important as we're recruiting and as we're promoting the city, that we're speaking with a unified voice. So what that looks like, it was a very long process. So it took about 18 months. And we interviewed, not we, but the company, North Star, they interviewed folks that lived here, folks that had been here a long time, folks that had been here, maybe just got here, folks that were visiting our area. They went into neighborhoods and cities surrounding the Gallatin area to ask them what they thought and felt about Gallatin and our image. They also went as far into like our schools, and then they like secret shopped inside some of the grocery stores here and just kind of approached people. And I'm going to tell y'all, that was a really tough process. It was kind of like somebody talking about your kid or your parent, when when you're reading that. Some of the stuff was really positive, but some of the stuff was really bad. And you were like, man. And so when we started to develop that identity, it was more so not who we think we are, but who do we want to be? And how do we want people to view Gallatin long term? And so we came up with a whole page. It's a brand narrative. It's actually on the Gallatin website, gallatintn.org. You can find that information. And it starts out with Johnny Cash once said, and then it tells the story of Gallatin, and it gives you all these feels. And if you read it or you listen to it and you kind of close your eyes, in fact, Eric, we should have you read it. Like, your voice would be great reading it. But when you get this image of, I know, I'm sorry. I mean, it's fair. I mean,
I'll take compliments where I can get them. I appreciate that.
I mean, I could think of many other better voices I'd like to hear, but okay.
Brian, can we mute him for a minute? Like,
Hello, I'm
but
Johnny
it gives you
Cash.
it gives you this image of Gallatin, and you close your eyes, you're like, man, this is a cool place. And that's what we wanted. We wanted it to provoke feelings. We wanted it to put in some key words in there that would really help folks identify who we are. And if folks are relocating or thinking about visiting our area, they would have an understanding of who we are and what they're going to find here before they arrive on the scene. So the True Grit, Amazing Grace is our strap line. We've used that a ton of different ways, and we continue to, and we plan to for a while. I don't think it'll grow tired for a long time. For us, we say that our chamber offers true connectivity and amazing community. EDA says true success, amazing opportunity, because that's what they feel that they can bring when prospects come to the area. But the True Grit is a nod to our tenacity, our authenticity, the hardworking people living the American dream, all of the industries that are here. The Amazing Grace is a nod to our ties to faith, because Gallatin definitely has that. Our historical assets, our natural resources, the rolling hills, the lakefront property and living that you find here. So we're really proud of that. In fact, if you could see my necklace, it says Grit and Grace. And so it's kind of one of those things that it's just, I've kind of embodied it as like, hey, this is my brand too, because there's a lot of meaning behind grit and grace. And I think as a female leader and the leader of our business community, I like to demonstrate grit and grace in every day. I think we need to extend grace to ourselves and those within the community. And then I think we need to show grit in all we do.
It's no secret you're an advocate for Gallatin, and dare I say, slightly in love with Gallatin. Probably, would that be a
probably a little? That's fair.
Fair assessment.
I wouldn't. I'm not ashamed of that.
Yeah. So I mean, looking through your career at the chamber, I mean, when did that passion develop for Gallatin? I mean, as it stands today, was that, because I know you had roots here before you were part of the chamber, but when did that develop? And I'm sure it's getting stronger all the time.
So I'm not originally from Gallatin. So a lot of people that meet me are like surprised by that. My husband's born and raised here, but I moved here in 2000 from South Florida. And I think part of it, I quickly fell in love with Gallatin before I came to know the chamber, just because I really liked the community that was here. I liked the traditions. I liked the historic downtown. I liked all of those things that Gallatin has to offer. I moved a lot. I went to a lot of different schools. I lived in 4 different states. So I like the idea of putting down roots here. When I got to the chamber, it really just accelerated that, because I got to work with people all the time that were excited about starting a business here, or excited about telling their story, or excited to, have a multi-generational workforce, or just different things. I remember one of my first weeks at the chamber would have been, I don't know if it was homecoming week or it would have been like a playoff week for Gallatin High School. And one of the things we were tasked with was getting all of our businesses on board to like make signs for the parade. So if it was the parade from the high school to the football field. Because if you didn't know that, Gallatin's football field is not on the high school campus. It's on the old high school campus, but the wave yard is actually off-site. So when they built the new school, they decided to leave the football field where it was, because it has a lot of history and a lot of legacy. So on Fridays, it's really fun. You can see the folks caravan, the cheerleaders, the football players, the guys that drive Jeeps and trucks with their big flags. They caravan from the high school to the football field. And so I think those kind of moments, being able to step outside and see that, were really fun for me. But we were tasked with making a sign for our office and then getting other chambers to do that. And And the way the community just came together, it was like no questions asked. Like, of course we'll do that. Of course we'll change our marquee, or of course we'll go buy a sign from the local print shop. And so for us, we made this big one. And it says "We love GHS." And so I was tasked with making that. And the joke was that they let me play with glitter like the first week on the job. So I was like, oh my gosh, I get to play with glitter here too. This is awesome.
It's almost like being an architect.
I mean,
Yeah, there
basically,
you
or
go.
being a nanny.
Yeah.
Like, it's basically all the things into one. So that was really fun, just seeing the community spirit. And so that kind of lit me on fire. And then as I got to work with businesses, specifically startups, because a lot of times we see businesses in the early, our businesses mostly join when they're new to the community, right? So they're excited about getting to the community, or they're starting a business and they're kind of on fire for what they're doing. And we get to walk with them in those early days. And that's fun. That's really fun. I mean, you guys are all business owners. And so you know that those early days are scary, but they're also really fun. And so to get to do that with them, it's like something new and exciting all the time. And so that hasn't gotten old. I still haven't had a day where I've woken up and thought, I don't want to go to work today. So
That's awesome. The two words you said a minute ago that really caught me was authenticity and consistency.
mm-hmm.
Your chamber brings that. And I feel like, especially for us three up here, to differentiate yourself in the field of what we do, we have mortgage lender, real estate agent, insurance. You have to have those two things in order to really break out in your group. Do you agree with that? I mean, is that what
Absolutely.
you think too?
Yeah.
And that's how Eric has really been successful, and Dennis too. I mean, these guys are both, you can't get more genuine and authentic than these two guys. Right?
Yeah.
So,
No, and I agree with that. And I think so. I think you have to have that, because who I am at work on a Monday should be the same person I am if you run into me on a store on a Saturday, or somewhere on a Friday night, or at church on Sunday morning. Any of those places, I think everybody should be the same version of themselves. I think that's really unfortunate when we see these different versions of people, outside the work and inside. And for us at the chamber, specifically me, I think my job my work life and my personal life and it's all really integrated, right? Because if I go to the store at 6:00 on a Tuesday night, I'm still Kim, the chamber CEO. And if somebody wants to stop and ask me about a new development, or they want to join, the chamber in the middle of Kroger, then we need to stop and do that. And so, and then the consistency key, consistency in how we deliver our services, that we're delivering them the same every time. And then I guess the kind of consistency in how we treat people, that it's the same across the board. I think that's really important.
I think that's very important. You're consistent doing that, because how many people in our field, don't have that authenticity, or, don't do what they preach, right? And so, coaching my kids t-ball, or, that's the way I am everywhere. So,
right.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
And I think it transcends about any industry, that you're in, right? Whether you're a business owner, or, Kim doesn't own the chamber, but she treats it like it's hers,
Mm-hmm.
right? She doesn't clock out whenever she goes to the grocery store, right? And say, I'm sorry, I'm buying milk and eggs right now. I can't answer any questions about the chamber. You got to owe some amount of success, to treating it that way, with that amount of ownership, just my 2 cents.
No, I think so too. I think it's a blessing and a curse, right? There's some days I go back and I'm like, man, I wish I wouldn't have put my cell phone on my business card 6 years, like my personal cell phone. But it was kind of one of those things. I was like, I'm going to be accessible. And now, when I get that call on a Saturday at 5:00, hey, can you help me with this? Which I'm always happy to do. And that's the other thing about our industry, is that we're helping businesses, and my retailers and my restaurants, specifically those, or hospitality type folks, their hours are not 9 to 4 or 8 to 5 when the chamber, or when the rest of us are normally working. They might need help on a Friday night. I think it's just being accessible too is another one, and available.
So when you mention help, so if there's a small business that's starting, that's coming to Gallatin, what does the chamber do to help them, for somebody that may not know exactly what that's there for?
So we actually have that is a good question. And so we like to be that first stop and that one stop for business, right? Obviously there's a lot of things they're probably going to need from the city, from an insurance person, from maybe an engineer, depending on their status with their building or whatever it is. But really that primary resource, helping them connect all of those dots. And those are not things that we would turn you away. If Eric came in and Eric was not a chamber member and hadn't joined yet, and Eric said, hey, I really need help, doing this or connecting with this or finding this, I'm not going to tell him, we'll come back when you join. I'm going to sit down with him and I'm going to walk him through what he needs to figure out. And if that's figuring out licensing or who to call with the city or the county for certain things, connecting with an insurance person to make sure he's insured before he opens, those are all things we help with. I think some of the common practices people know about the chamber is we cut ribbons. Funny story about cutting a ribbon. When I first started working at the chamber, my mom had developed an understanding of what we did at the chamber. And she ran into somebody that she knew, and the lady said, "Oh, Kim works at the chamber. That's fun. All they do is cut ribbons. I bet she has so much fun." And my mom had, she'd come to understand that that was not all we did. And my mom went like mama bear on this lady. She's like, "Let me tell you what they actually do." And I was like, "Oh boy." I was like, "Okay, well, thanks, Mom." But we do cut a lot of ribbons. And that's something our chamber does is we offer those to businesses that are a member or maybe are a future member. We call them future members. We don't like to call them non-members because our idea is that all of them could be future members. And so we do those. And some of the businesses we cut ribbons for don't ever join the chamber. Some of them join down the road. Some of them join before we actually get to the ribbon cutting, but that's one of those things. And so with that, they all get a share on social media. We send out a release to our media partners. We get that on our blog. But really walking them through and helping them connect the dots. And for every business, that's different. Some of them need things. Some of them need help with the codes department sometimes, which our city folks are great to work with. But sometimes they really just don't know how to navigate or where they start over there. We actually have a section on our website. It's called Starting a Business, and I wrote all of it myself, and it's pretty lengthy, but it has every link and everything you would need to do based on the city, the county, and the state. And so a lot of times if we get a call and it's not someone that's like ready to meet, we send them there. We also work closely with the TSBDC, which we're really fortunate to have a location here. TSBDC stands for the Tennessee Small Business Development Center. There is an office on Vol State's campus. I think there's only like 10 or 12 offices in the state. So that's pretty tremendous that we have one right here in Gallatin. Charles Alexander is a director there, and he works closely with small businesses, specifically those that are getting started. He helps them find funding resources. He offers a series of classes to help them get better equipped. And they're open to other businesses too that are established. Like when I came on board as chamber CEO, I went through a QuickBooks class there because I was like, I don't know about QuickBooks. So I went to QuickBooks school
Still
for a
don't know
day.
about QuickBooks.
I know. Good thing my COO, I came back, I was like, "Hey, do you want me to do like the QuickBooks stuff?" She's like, "I'd rather you not touch it." And I was like, "Perfect. I'm going to delete it off my computer and I'll just come pull reports when I need them." So
Everybody wins.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. I was like, I'm not going to mess up what you're doing.
So that is a great segue. If anybody could do all the things you're talking about, it's probably Kim Baker. But I know you've got a great team around you too.
Yeah.
So tell us about them.
Yeah. So my team's awesome. I always joke, like, if my team leaves, I'm probably leaving too. And, the one thing that I'm most proud about our chamber is my team. And, if anybody were to ask, like if your question had been, "Kim, what do you think your biggest success is?" My biggest success is that I've been able to retain the two that were there before me. And I think that, speaks volume about their passion for what they're doing, but also the way we're able to collaborate and work together. So Zena is my COO. She just celebrated 15 years at the chamber. She is born and raised Gallatin girl. She is our kind of like historical knowledge person. And, if somebody calls and says, "Hey, what used to be in this building like 40 years ago?" Well, we asked Zena. And so Zena's great. She handles all of the behind the scenes stuff. I always like to say, and I think Zena hates this analogy, but Zena, if you're listening, I'm sorry. But I always like to say that Zena is like the chamber cat and I'm like the chamber dog. And that's how we're able to coexist. Zena likes to kind of stay behind the scenes, do her things, knock things over on occasion. And I like to get out and sniff around, lick people sometimes, not literally, but like a dog, and kind of explore. So Zena, I always say, keeps the lights on, the bills paid, and just make sure we stay out of jail and trouble, right? And so if you get a bill or if you're updating your member records, that's Zena. Debbie, my director of sales, gosh, I think Debbie's going on maybe 10 or 12 years. I need to confirm that. But if you've seen our city guide, which I brought y'all some today, Debbie, I always say that I don't speak magazine, but Debbie does. So Debbie sells all of the ads in that publication. She also does membership and sponsorship sales, and that's primarily her role. And so she's really good at it too. And then I have Angela. She's our member experience coordinator. Angela and Debbie is a transplant from, she came here after what she calls that little weather event that happened in New Orleans a few years ago.
Mhm.
She came here after Katrina,
Gotcha.
came to explore, really like Gallatin, put down roots. And then Angela she's an Air Force brat. And so, but she's here by way of Philly, but she's lived all over. And so that is probably my favorite thing about Angela is that she has lived all over and she's been exposed to a lot of different cultures and a lot of different types of communities and a lot of different people. And so she has the ability to talk to anybody and carry on a conversation about anything. And so her primary job as member experience coordinator is to make sure that our members are having the best experience possible, making sure they're using their benefits, making sure they're having a good time. And that's really her job. She helps run a lot of our events and programs as well. Christy Ladd is our director of first impressions. And so she is also, from New Orleans, from Louisiana. She's not from New Orleans. She's like Cajun, like deeper. But she's been with us almost a year, and she is what I call her, the director of first impressions. So she's the first person you hear when you call. She's the first person you see when she comes in. So she probably has one of the most important roles in our office because she is that first line of contact. We get, believe it or not, we mail out about 50 newcomer packets a month to folks who are relocating to the area. So
50 a month?
50 a month.
Wow.
Yeah. And COVID didn't slow that down. Like it made it speed up, if anything. And so these are folks that are reaching out to us. And so this doesn't include like HOAs and realtors, newcomer groups, churches that are wanting mass quantities to give out to new members and new residents. So Chrissy handles all of those. She handles our job postings, our calendar, and then our ambassador program, which are basically like our chamber cheerleaders. And then we have Paul, which Paul's away at the University of Tennessee. He's actually being a very good student and not having as much fun as I did. I have tried to talk him out of staying in college
being
a
a
few
good
times.
student.
Yeah, because he's such a good employee. He started with us as a high school intern. And so he interned with us in his senior year. Then he stayed on with us through the summer, and then he transferred to UT, and he's phenomenal. And so we're excited to have him back this summer. He'll be with us for a few months. So that is our team. We do have, right now we have an intern from Pope Prep. So we always keep a Pope Prep intern on our team. And I'm really, as you can imagine, my experience going into college and having that lack of experience and career exploration has made me really, really passionate about making sure we're equipping students in middle and high school with the tools they need to figure out what they want to do and more importantly, what they don't want to do before they invest a lot of their time and money into it. So Stella is a student at Pope Prep right now. And so she's with us. And then we are actually about to bring on a student from Vol State onto our team. She'll be with us all summer. So
Very good.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the team was that big.
Yeah, so we have six that are.
Has it grown since you started?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So when I started, there was 2.5. I was the half. And then we
give yourself more credit than that.
Well, I mean, I quickly grew to the full-time person. And then, so we've basically doubled the staff since I started.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Has your membership doubled?
Yeah, more than doubled.
Wow.
Yeah. As of today, we're right at about 700.
What do you contribute to that success? Everything that you've basically said,
Yeah,
or is there one thing?
I think a lot of what I've said. I mean, I think I would be, I think Gallatin's growth and the region's growth have a lot to do with it, right? Because if we weren't experiencing that, then these people wouldn't be here for us to find. So I think that does play into it. But we do have to actively go out there and engage with them, just like y'all have to engage with your clients. If you're not after them and then you're not staying with them, then they're not gonna be a part of your organization. So I do think that just the way we approach folks, I think our engaging content, both online and off, keeps them. And then I think that we remain a very community-focused chamber. Yes, we're about business. Yes, we're about growing business. But we firmly believe that when the community does better, then naturally and very organically, your businesses grow and experience success. So we still do and have our hands in a lot of those community-focused programs. The Christmas parade. We've got shop local events, 5Ks, 10Ks, which we still figure out a way to fit them under our mission. And we're not ready to give them up because they do bring attention to our businesses. But more importantly, they create a strong sense of community that allows a space for our businesses to feel very connected and in front of people.
Yeah, I think that's great. So the real reason you're here is to ask the question, how did you die?
Oh.
This is the only reason you're on the
Curveball.
podcast, so
Okay.
really the only
I
reason.
mean, hey, whatever gets me here, right? So in 2000, it's funny how you asked that. In 2000, I was walking out of school one day, and I would have been 13 years old, and just walking, and I felt my heart accelerating very fast. And I got in the car with my mom, and at this time we were living in South Florida. I went to a K-12 like private school that had a pretty large campus. You would have to drive from one end to the other. You could walk it, but it was better to drive it. So we get in the car, and my mom said, "You don't look good." I was probably about as white as your shirt. And I said, "Yeah, I don't feel good." And I said, "Feel my chest." And she felt my chest, and my heart was just pounding, and it wasn't slowing down. I hadn't been doing anything either. And so at the time, I had this choker on, which if I'd known you were going to ask me that, I would have worn it as a prop. But it was a choker that, because it was 2000 and chokers were really popular, had a butterfly. And so the butterfly was like turned to the side right on where my pulse would have been. And my mom said, that butterfly looks like it's just going to fly off your chest. And I was like, oh my gosh. She was like, we need to drive you to the school nurse. So we drove around. The nurse took my pulse, and she said, your heart is accelerating and it keeps going up. She said, you need to get to the emergency room right now, but an ambulance is not going to be able to get here fast enough. So this was South Florida. So what these people here think that traffic is on its worst day is nothing compared to South Florida's traffic on the best day. So I'll just slide that traffic comment in there. So the nurse said, I am going to call ahead to the ER. That way you can fly down the road as fast as you can get there, and they're going to be ready for you. So we got there. I'll give you the condensed version of the story, but my heart was up to 268 beats per minute when I arrived.
268?
268. Yeah, 268. Oh. Even the hardest workout, I'm sure you've never seen.
And just to clarify, this butterfly was going to fly off your chest because you were like your neck was swollen.
No, it was like fluttering.
Oh, fluttering.
The
right there.
Yeah, the butterflies like wings were like working.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, either way, that's terrifying.
Yeah. So we go in there, we go to the hospital, we're in there. This is an ER that has like the curtains that separate it, so not like individual rooms like they have at Sumner Regional or Sumner Station. And so I can see everything that's going on. I'm a kid still. This is kind of scary. They rush in, and the doctor basically comes in. He says, "Hey, we have to stop your heart." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "So, we're going to stop your heart, and I can't tell you exactly what you're going to experience next." He said, "Some people black out. Some people see white." He said, "But we're going to do our best to bring you back." Oh, okay, good.
Well, that's encouraging.
And somehow you still remember those words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Wow.
And so they put
life.
something magic in my vein, and my heart dropped to 0. And then they put something else in my vein to restart my heart. And and so my heart restarted, and it kind of went back in rhythm. But I was diagnosed the next day with a condition similar to WPW, which is Wolff-Parkinson's White, which that's not what I have. I have something very rare and similar to it. So it's basically the same thing. But it's essentially where your heart has an extra valve. So I was born with a heart too big. So your heart, I know, your heart has a...
Such a giver.
I know. Yeah. So your heart has an extra valve. So when your blood should circulate and, stay in rhythm, mine was taking shortcuts. And so it was causing it to accelerate. So later that summer, this was in May, that was May 3rd. So later that summer, I think mid-June, I had a procedure. It was an open heart. It was a catheterization ablation. So they put in different catheters and basically ran microwave heat to my valve and removed it. And so they told me that I didn't need to come back unless I wanted to join the military. Go to college, join the military, or have a baby. I'm not brave enough to join the military, so we didn't have to worry about that. I did go see them before college, and I was fine. And then in it would have been 2016, I found out I was pregnant with Anlin. And so I went, ironically, this is a wild part of the story. I called to make a cardiologist appointment. And they say, "Hey, we have a date coming up, and which I was due at the end of June." So I went, but my cardiologist appointment for like final clearance was on May 3rd, which would be the anniversary of like the date. That was the first date they gave me. I was like, "Okay, I'll come." So I went, and all my tests were fine, and they cleared me to have a baby. And I didn't want to have a baby in a hospital. So they cleared me to have a baby wherever and however I wanted to. So and she's here and she's healthy and she doesn't have any heart conditions.
That's
Wow,
amazing.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
That's
amazing
and you have a
story.
bonus baby too, right?
Oh yeah, I do. I have Hayden. He'll be 16 next month. We're looking for a car, so if anybody knows a used car for a
Yeah,
teenager,
talk to me
ooh.
about that insurance when that goes up.
Yeah, I know.
You sell insurance?
I do, yeah. You sell insurance, and you do voiceovers because your voice is so bubbly. Yeah. Okay.
Kim, I've got one last big question for you.
Oh
Actually,
boy.
5.
5?
Well, who's counting?
Okay.
Can you handle the speed questions?
I
You
can
think
handle
you're up
speed
for
questions.
this?
Do I have time?
Brian, can you start the timer? I don't know how. Yeah.
Ready, go.
Ready, go. All right, here we go. Where's your happy place?
My happy place? Bonnaroo.
Oh,
Bonnaroo. Okay, man, we should have tapped more into that.
yeah.
This will be my 13th Bonnaroo this year. I haven't been since I was 38 weeks pregnant. I went to Bonnaroo 38 weeks pregnant. My mom was terrified. I said, Mom, I'm not having a baby in a hospital. So there's actually more medical staff on site on the Bonnaroo grounds than there will be at my birth. So I had to go back in the car just in case I went early. And Anlin's name would not have been Anlin if she was born at Bonnaroo. It would have been Ruby.
Mm.
But
That's
she
it.
wasn't born at Bonnaroo, and I did make it back. So, but that would have been the last time because in 2017 I did not go because Anlin. No, I did go in 2017. In 2018, Anlin was a year old, so I didn't want to leave her. And then in 2019, I was on track to go, and then my dad he got ill, and so I had to fly to MD Anderson to be with him, and so didn't go in 2019, and then 2020 and 2021 it was canceled. So this is like the big return year.
And you're
That's
going this
awesome.
year.
Big year.
Oh, I'm going. Yeah, bought
That's
the tickets the day they went on sale, RV and everything. Yep.
Nice. What would you do if you weren't the chamber CEO?
I think about that a lot. I'm like, what else would I do? Is this like a question like if money wasn't an option kind of thing, or
Yeah, just
Yeah.
How
whatever.
would you spend your time?
Yeah.
yeah. I'd probably travel and like specifically like maybe camp, like national parks, like RV all over. Like if I had unlimited time and resources, I would probably just spend a lot of time exploring.
Do you have a hero or person that you've looked up to the most throughout your life?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite hero, if we're talking superheroes, is Wonder Woman. And I'd
Mhm.
just like to leave y'all with, have you ever seen her and I at the same time? Just think about that.
Interesting.
I'm interested.
Something to
now. I don't
ponder.
think So
No, I think my dad, I always looked up to my dad. He always had great advice, especially as I came into like a professional career. There was a lot of things that I loved to lean on him about. And there's a lot of times I still pick up the phone and wish I could call him. So
I bet.
Yeah.
What's the most impactful book or podcast that you've checked out?
I really like, and I know probably a lot of people have read this, but I still think everybody should read it. Start with why. I think everybody should understand why what your why is, and then what your organization's why is. And I think that's really important.
is that Simon? Sinek? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Any of his books are amazing too. There also is a book, this is kind of nerdy, but there's a book called The Magicians of Main Street, and it's the history of chambers in the U.S. And so I've really enjoyed reading that, and that's fun. I also like local history books. We have a large collection. As you know, my husband is the history, he's a history buff, but he's also the director of the Sumner County Museum. And so that's fun to understand like the different sites. And I love local history specifically because we're here and we can still see all of those icons and things and places that's mentioned.
Yeah. Shout out to Ryan. He's a great guy. Does a great job for the community. And lastly, what would you say is your superpower?
Superpower. I think that
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
I'll ask the questions here.
Oh, sorry.
Ooh.
Okay. All right. Okay.
You can pick either
Your
one
deep
you'd like.
voice, that'll do it.
You can pick anyone
Got it.
you'd like.
I'm sitting out on this one, boys.
So I have, I guess like endurance. Like I have the ability to like go. I hope that doesn't catch up with me. It hasn't caught up with my mom or my grandmother. She's 90, and sometimes she'll call and say like I'm painting a wall or something. I'm like, oh, hold on, get off the ladder. But I have that, and my daughter has it too. Like if we've been at home on a Saturday, by like Sunday morning, she's like, can we go somewhere? And so I like to go, which I guess is kind of like a superpower. I also require very little sleep, which is also kind of fun because I don't need to sleep a lot to feel rested.
How many hours you get of sleep a night?
I mean, I get more than my body. I get enough, but like I can run off of 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah.
And still
Yeah.
be good.
Very good. Anything else? You guys good?
That wraps it up.
Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank
This
you.
has been great.
This was super fun. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all doing this. And as a community builder, I appreciate the community that y'all build here in Sumner County.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you guys. This is always a pleasure. I love doing this every time we get together. Kim, thank you. Brian behind the camera, thank you. Brian Holloway. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. Click the subscribe the button, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
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 Cheers.